Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I am the American SpyFox, back with another video, a short video, a couple things I wanted to talk about, put out there, see, just to get other people's opinions. A little crazy right now, little cabin fever. Don't remember the last time I left my house. If you're quarantined like me, you're probably feeling the same way. I have a few words of encouragement before we get started with the video. I recently read that Isaac Newton invented calculus during a period of isolation. A pandemic was ravaging Europe. He took his family, his children, his wife out to his country home, isolated themselves. He invents calculus and comes up with the theory of gravity. He sees his kids chucking apples at each other's heads and watching the apples fall and wonders, why do apples fall? Why don't they just keep going? Comes up with the theory of gravity. What I'm trying to say, oh yeah, and Shakespeare, same thing. During a period of isolation, can't remember which play it was. It might even be Romeo and Juliet. Shakespeare writes one of his famous plays during a period of isolation. What I'm trying to say is whatever you're passionate about, start reading about it now. Start writing about it now. You want to learn how to play guitar? You want to learn how to play drums? You want to learn another language? Do it. Just because you're trapped at home does not mean that you can't learn something new or start a project that may change your life. Write a book. If you're off work, you're quarantined, you have no excuses, you have all the time in the world, get started right now. Okay. For those of you who do not know already, the very last Nirvana series video will be uploaded on the anniversary of Kurt's death. I'm hoping for it to have maximum effect because a lot more people will be paying attention to his death and the mysterious circumstances surrounding it during that time, and I would like for it to be seen by as many people as possible. It's going to be a long one. It's going to be in depth. I think you guys will like it. This is not going to be a real long video with an interwoven story. I'm just posing a couple questions, asking for your opinions. I will be in the comments after the video is uploaded. First thing I'd like to do is show you an interview. It's Dale Crover and Buzz Osborne of the Melvins. Maybe you've seen this, maybe you haven't. After that, I want to show you an article from Rolling Stones with some things Chris Novoselic said about Buzz Osborne. Once I've shared these things with you, then I'll come back and get to the point.
Complaining about Buzz talking about Montage of Heck because he's telling the truth about it all. Thing is that you can't really bullshit a bullshitter, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's not here to defend himself, you know? We are.
And that's the whole thing with his review, was defending our friend who's dead.
Yeah, I can't quite figure out what people have a problem with. They want Cobain to be suicidal. They want him to have tried to fuck a fat retard.
Can you say that on TV here? I mean, he is quoting the movie.
I am quoting the movie. You know, they want that. They would feel better if he was suicidal. They'd feel better.
I have a feeling that the director looks at it as some sort of art piece rather than something that's based in fact, you know. And I don't know, people never really believe us anyway when we tell the truth about that stuff. But I mean, you know, we knew him really well. I was in the band, more or less, you know.
It's just weird to me that anyone would defend this stuff that I'm mad about. It's crazy.
And who are you going to believe? Somebody that knew him really well or somebody that didn't know him at all? We don't have any monetary gain from saying any of this stuff at all.
I mean, I gain nothing from this, you know, other than saying, you know, I was contacted and contracted to write a review of it. So
that's what it was.
That's the review.
You know, and you know, not that I'd expect it, but none of the people that had anything to do with the film bothered to get a hold of us. They probably don't even know that my parents are in the movie.
You know, I mean, his daughter wasn't even there, and Courtney. Nobody believes Courtney. Why would you?
But you know, all those stories about Cobain and those guys have always been BS.
Yeah, it's BS. 90%
but, you know,
BS.
But you know, it's better than the truth anyway.
I'm just sorry that all those stories came out about him first and not us.
So during the interview, Buzz tells us that he was contacted and contracted, meaning he was paid to review Montage of Heck. Now, right before that, Dale Crover says, we stand to gain nothing monetarily by saying these things. Buzz agrees with him. Then tells us he got paid to review it. Now, I'm not saying Buzz is a liar. I actually agree with Buzz. I think he's telling the truth. His review, Melvin's frontman Buzz Osborne made a number of comments bashing the Kurt Cobain documentary, Montage of Heck, when it came out last summer, claiming that source material was taken out of context, targeting Courtney Love's role in the film and calling it 90% BS. This is what Chris Novoselic has to say to Rolling Stone about Buzz, and it's something that I want to talk to you guys about. That's just Buzz. He tells Rolling Stone, shrugging off the criticisms. He's always been like that, but we love him, so we just accept him for that. He's always had these opinions, like, oh, there goes Buzz again. You never know what he's going to say, but he means well, and he's a great musician. He's been a dear friend for a long time. That's the way it is. Now, previously, I had made a video about Buzz Osborne and my belief that he was very envious of Kurt Cobain's success. Typically, when you put up an opinion-based video on any form of social media, you're either going to get a lot of likes, which means the majority of people agree with you, or you're going to get a lot of dislikes, which means the majority of people disagree with you. In this particular instance, it was mixed, almost 50-50, likes to dislikes. And this is why. What Chris tells us in Rolling Stone is why. Buzz is very black and white sometimes. He can say one thing and then completely contradict it. Sometimes he defends Kurt, sometimes he says Kurt was a junkie that I fired because he was messing up my recording studio. You never know which way he's going to go with it. Now, I was never a huge Melvins fan, and I have to admit that I've never dug deep into Buzz's background or anything like that, but when you just barely scratch the surface, you're gonna get a whole lot of different opinions from Buzz, and it may change from week to week. Having said that, do I believe that Buzz was a good friend of Kurt's? Absolutely. I do believe that he cares about Kurt Cobain to this day. Do I also believe that Buzz had a little bit of envy? Yes, I do. And I've seen even more examples than I used in that video of him just blatantly putting Kurt down, saying that he was a sellout, that they were selling an image, that Kurt only sold more records than he did because he was a pretty boy, just really belittling Kurt's legacy. Friends can criticize each other, right? Even there at the end of the interview, he says something that a person like me could take out of context. He says, I'm just glad that it happened to them and not to us. Basically, I'm glad that all the bullshit stories were made up about them and not me and Dale. That's kind of a dick thing to say. But if you're like Chris and you know Buzz and you're a good friend of his, you know that sometimes he says shit that's off the wall that people just brush aside, and that deep down, he means well. Even if he says something effed up, he means well. Before I read that Rolling Stone article where Chris Novoselic, someone who has known Buzz practically his entire life, explains this, I thought Buzz was just an total envious prick. Now that I know Chris is aware that Buzz is back and forward and says, you know, that's just kind of how he is, we just ignore it, I have more empathy for Buzz, and I don't feel as though there's as much negativity coming from Buzz that I thought there was before. I'm curious about your opinions, though. You guys have ever paid attention to Buzz. What do you think about him and his relationship and all this? And I do believe Buzz. I believe him that 90% of Montage of Heck is absolute. Matter of fact, I've never watched it. I just rented it because I'm coming up on the last Nirvana series video, and I'm thinking I've read every book, I've read every article I could find, I've watched every documentary, and it popped up in my head. No, I haven't. I haven't watched Montage of Heck. I avoided it, even though they say Frances is the one who like produced it or directed it or whatever. Her name's stamped on it. It's Miss Love's pet project, and they just stamped Kurt's daughter's name on it. Number one, for legal necessity, because she now owns any publicity to Kurt Cobain is now owned by Frances Bean. Don't know if you guys knew that or not. Courtney held it for a long time. Frances came of age, won it from her mother. So they had to use her name regardless. And Buzz even tells you Frances didn't have anything to do with that documentary. She wasn't even fucking alive. So I wanted to ask you guys, is Montage of Heck even worth my time? And I'm going to be in the comments as soon as I upload this video. Is it worth my time? Is it going to make me mad? You know, is there anything in there worth listening to that I should pay extra special attention to? Now, people have told me that Kurt himself had been recording his voice and he narrates part of it. It's part of it's animated and he narrates it. I'm wondering, Kurt was an artsy person. And in an interview I read with Buzz, actually, he talks about how him and Kurt became friends. Kurt would draw out, like a comic book has sequences, right? Like each box represents a new motion and a scene that's taking place. Kurt would draw out these comic book-like sequences where the teachers they didn't like were like being eaten by Pac-Man, or, you know, and he says Kurt had a dark sense of humor. That's what attracted me to him. I loaned him my punk rock fanzines, which is what attracted him to me. And if you didn't know, Buzz Osborne took Kurt to his very first punk rock show in 1984. It was a Black Flag show. They were on they were promoting their new album, My War, and it was called the My War Tour. Kurt said right then and there, this is what I want to do with my life. Back to my point, is it possible that some of the scenes and scenarios that are played out in Montage of Heck were just Cobain making up little comic stories, making up stories for his own entertainment? Everyone who knew him as a child says he had a very dark sense of humor. Or maybe he wanted to get into the art world and draw comic books or whatever. People have told me that there are scenes that play out in Montage of Heck that are so unlike Kurt Cobain, it's not even funny, and that it's possible he was just narrating stories that his dark sense of humor either found funny, or possibly stories from his childhood involving other people in this poverty-stricken town that he grew up. I mean, he came out with an album called Incesticide. Like, sort of sick, twisted stories were kind of like his thing, his entertainment, you know? And is that what Buzz means by 90% of the documentary are stories that are taken out of context? Buzz and Kurt have a lot of history. Now imagine that you're Buzz, or just imagine that your best friend who looked up to you and valued your opinion and whom you possibly taught a lot about punk rock music, ends up being a famous punk rocker, ends up becoming a world famous rock star, and just leaves you in the dust. There might be a little bit of animosity there. Or it might be like, yeah, that's my friend. He's not your friend, he's my friend. You know, we get possessive over our friends and family. You know what I mean? We all do. It's human nature. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, had I never been put under quarantine, a once-in-a-lifetime event, I probably would have never given Courtney Love my money for Montage of Heck. But just to be able to say that I watched all the documentaries, I saw everything for both sides, I read all the books, I'm gonna go ahead, check it out. I just want everybody to keep in mind what Buzz Osborne said. 90% of it is taken out of context, and a lot of it's just pure lies. Especially the younger kids. Know that if you're going to waste your money on Montage of Heck, you probably shouldn't look at it as a factual account of Kurt Cobain's early life. I'm working on a video right now of Kurt Cobain's early life, and I promise you it will have nothing but facts in it. Specifically using the Michael Azerrad Come As You Are book that was published when Kurt was actually alive, a book that Kurt Cobain himself has quotes in that he worked with the author, so you know that it's true because Kurt worked with the author. How would Charles Cross or any of these other authors really know what was going on in Kurt's early life if all they're talking to is Courtney?